Alright, this is a quick teardown of a Lomo LC-A, not the Lomography LC-A Plus version, but the Soviet one. Start with unscrewing the bottom screws and remove the battery contacts, blow out any debris you might find. Then start getting the lens cover off from the front. There's 4 screws on the sides. Then it's the PCB off the front. There's a couple of screws there to keep it in place, but they're quite easy to detect. Here I drop the screw. Then start working on the top cover. It's stuck with a couple of screws and there's a few hidden under the rewind lever. Next it's the leatherette. It takes a while to get the solvent to dissolve the glue that keeps it in place, so just keep applying more on it. While the solvent does its thing, I remove the viewfinder. Eventually the leatherette will start coming off. Just add more solvent and slowly work at it. Be careful not to rip it, because you can just re-glue it in place. The screws that keep the lens and shutter mechanism in place are often glued in place, so keep adding solvent to them until you feel that you get a good grip. Don't damage these screws, they're quite small. Try different screwdrivers to find one that gives you a perfect fit. But I tried several screwdrivers and I couldn't get 2 of them off, so I scraped them, tried to clean them, and then I used a soldering iron to heat them up. So just heat up the screw for a while with the soldering iron. Let it cool down a little bit. Add a drop of solvent again, and then presto, they come right off. The lens board itself is also glued into place, so add solvent into the cracks and slowly try to bend it outwards. Eventually it will come loose, but it may take a while. There we go. Here you can see the entire shutter mechanism. It's just that one chip that controls all of it. The design is very simple. I added some power to the battery clips to see if it's working, but I got a short circuit somewhere. I noticed that the chip got really hot, so I unplugged the makeshift power that I use for repairs. I accidentally disengaged the spring here, so that's what I'm doing here. It's not necessary. Then I checked if there's a short circuit, but there still was one, so I went ahead and disassembled it. Anyway, here you can see the lens on the right side and the shutter mechanism on the left. Open up that plate to see the blades. Clean the plate, both sides, clean everything. You can remove the shutter blades, but be careful not to bend them. And put everything in place, clean it again, and then add a tiny drop of oil on the pivot points. Reattach the plate. Add some lubricant to the moving parts on the other side. Then reassemble. Just check that everything works before you close up the assembly. It did. And then just reassemble. Same way as disassembly, but reversed. Put the lens and shutter board back where it came from. Be careful not to mix up your screws, which I did here. When you put it back together, be careful with the lever that opens up the mechanism when you open up the front cover. Here I demonstrate the part that needs to be freely moving after assembly. This one. Then just screw everything in place. Put the viewfinder back on after it's cleaned. Make sure no wires are squeezed behind it or underneath it before you screw it in. And check that everything still works. And it does. And here I will run out of batteries on my camera. But there's not much to see. I'm just reassembling everything. The order is not very important, and there's nothing special to consider when reassembling. The LC-A is a very simple camera with very few parts that can really break. The shutter is an electromechanical design where a small magnet will pull it open and then release it. The chip operates the magnet, and depending on the voltage the light meter sends to it, the shutter times will adjust accordingly. But if the power of the small magnet is not enough to pull the shutter blades open due to dust or whatever, the shutter will fire, but you will end up with a blank frame. Alright, that's it for this teardown. Thank you.